In the vast, sun-baked expanses of the Arizona desert, where the red rocks of the canyons whispered secrets of ancient warriors and the wind carried the faint echoes of war cries long faded, there lived a woman named Delara. She was the widow of the white man's world, her skin pale from years under eastern skies, but her heart toughened by the loss of her husband to the fever that swept through the mining camp 2 winters past. Delara had come west with dreams of gold and glory, but now she tended a small homestead on the edge of Apache lands, her hands calloused from tilling the stubborn soil and herding a few scraggly goats. The ranch was a modest affair, an adobe house with a sagging roof, a corral of weathered wood, and fields that yielded just enough corn and beans to keep starvation at bay. But lately, shadows had lengthened over her life. Rustlers from the south preyed on her livestock, and drought had turned the creek to a trickle. Alone, with only the stars for company, Delara felt the weight of survival pressing down like the summer heat. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon in a blaze of crimson, a figure emerged from the mesquite thickets, a towering man, broad as an oak and scarred from battles that had etched lines into his copper skin. He was Shaitan, an Apache elder of the White Mountain Band, once a fierce raider known as the Giant for his 7-foot frame and unyielding strength. Banished from his people for a youthful folly, a raid gone wrong that cost the life of a sacred horse elder, he had wandered the wilds for decades, surviving on cunning and the land's reluctant bounty. His hair, streaked with silver, hung in braids adorned with feathers from eagles long dead, and his eyes, dark as obsidian, held the wisdom of storms. Shaitan approached Delara's fire with hands raised in peace, his moccasins silent on the dust. "White woman of the lone house," he rumbled, his voice like thunder rolling distant, "I come not as enemy, but as shadow seeking shelter. The coyotes of men hunt me, and the spirits turn their backs. Let me stay and work for you. I'll man your fences, guard your herds, hunt the deer that flee your traps. I'll even get you pregnant again. Plant the seed of life in your barren fields, so your line endures beyond the white man's greed." Delara's heart skipped, her rifle half raised from where it lay by the hearth. Pregnant again? The word stung like salt in old wounds. She had lost her child to the same fever that claimed her man, and the emptiness sucked deeper than any drought. Yet in Shaitan's gaze, she saw not threat, but a desperate vow. A giant humbled by time, offering his all for a scrap of belonging. The night air thickened with unspoken stories of the Apache's wars against the Blue Echoes, the treaties broken like dry twigs, the woman stolen and the children scattered. Delara lowered her weapon, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "Stranger, your words are bold as the mountains. Work you may, but trust is earned like water from stone. Eat, and tomorrow we see if your hands are as strong as your tongue." As Shaitan sat by the fire, devouring the sparse stew of rabbit and wild onions, stories began to flow like the rare rains. He spoke of his youth, racing across the plains on painted ponies, arrows singing through the air to fell foes before they could cry out. Delara listened, her guard softening, sharing fragments of her own tale. The ship from Boston, the promise of fortune in the gold fields, the betrayal of fever that left her adrift. Under the vast canopy of stars, where constellations told tales of gods and giants, a fragile pact formed not of love, but of necessity. 2 souls battered by the frontier's cruelty clinging to the embers of hope. Days turned to weeks, and Shaitan's presence transformed the homestead. His massive hands, gnarled yet precise, rebuilt the corral with posts hewn from pine he felled single-handedly, his laughter booming as he wrestled posts into earth that had defied Delara's shovel. He taught her the Apache ways, tracking game by the band of grass, reading the wind's whispers for rain, weaving baskets from yucca that held water like secrets. In return, she showed him the white man's tools, to the plow's iron bite, the rifle's thunderous reach. But beneath the labor, tension simmered. Villagers from the nearby town eyed the giant Apache with suspicion, whispering of raids and vengeance. Delara's isolation deepened. Her trips to market met with cold stares and muttered curses. One night, as thunder growled on the horizon, Shaitan found her weeping by the dry creek bed, her hands clutching a faded locket with her lost child's miniature portrait. "The land takes, but it also gives," he murmured, his shadow enveloping her like a cloak. Gently, he drew her close, his touch tentative, reverent, as if handling fragile pottery. In that moment, barriers cracked. Alara's lips met his, tasting of salt and sage, and passion ignited like dry tinder. Their union was fierce, primal, a dance of bodies under the flashing sky, where Shaden's strength met Alara's resilience, forging something raw and real. As rain finally broke, soaking the parched earth, so too did new life stir within her, a promise whispered in the storm's roar. Yet dawn brought not joy alone, but peril. Scouts from Shaden's old band had sighted him, drawn by rumors of the giant's return. The homestead, once a sanctuary, now teetered on the edge of conflict, where love's fragile bloom faced the scythe of old grudges. Alara, belly already swelling with secret, stood resolute, her hand on the rifle, ready to defend the life they had sought together. Word count, 1024. Approximate characters, 6128. Expanded for narrative depth, but core story intact. As the moon waxed full over the jagged silhouettes of the Superstition Mountains, Alara's homestead pulsed with the rhythm of impending change, the air heavy with the scent of blooming night jasmine and the distant howl of wolves calling to their kin. Shaden, the old giant Apache, moved through the nights like a guardian spirit, his vigilant eyes scanning the horizons for signs of trouble, while by day he toiled with unyielding vigor, irrigating the fields with ditches carved from rock-hard clay, his sweat mingling with the soil to coax green shoots from dormancy. Alara watched him from the porch, her hand often resting on the subtle curve of her abdomen, where his child kicked with the promise of thunder. Their nights had become a tapestry of intimacy, bodies entwined in the flicker of lantern light, exploring the maps of scars and softness that told their stories without words. Shaden would trace the faint lines on Alara's belly from her lost pregnancy, his fingers gentle as eagle feathers, murmuring Apache prayers for the spirit now growing strong. "This one will be a bridge," he said one evening, as they lay on a blanket spread under the pecan tree, stars pricking the velvet sky like arrowheads. Apache blood and white fire, unbreakable as the canyon walls. Alara smiled, though doubt gnawed at her edges. The town folks' whispers had grown to shouts, tales of the savage lover poisoning the well of their fragile peace. Supplies dwindled, forcing her to venture into Black Canyon City, where the general store owner, a grizzled veteran named Harlan with a limp from Gettysburg, slammed his ledger shut at her approach. "Can't serve you, ma'am," he growled, eyes flicking to the Apache beads she now wore around her neck. "Consorting with hostiles brings the curse of Koch Eyes himself." Humiliation burned her cheeks as she turned away, basket empty, the sting of isolation sharper than any cactus spine. Back home, she poured out her rage to Shaden, who listened with the patience of ancient pines, then rose like a monolith to gather his bow and quiver. "I will hunt deeper, bring back venison and wild turkey to fill your stores," he vowed, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through her bones. But as he vanished into the twilight, a dust cloud on the horizon heralded riders. 3 men from the vigilante posse, armed with Winchesters and grudge. They were led by Jedediah Crow, a rancher whose brother had fallen to Apache arrows years before, his face twisted in perpetual sneer. "Heard you've got an Injun squatting on your claim, widow," Crow spat from his saddle, his men fanning out like vultures. Alara stood tall, shotgun cradled in her arms, the weight of her secret child stealing her spine. "He's my hand, my protector, and none of your damn business," she retorted, voice cutting like a Bowie knife. The standoff stretched out as a bowstring, broken only by Shaden's return, emerging from the scrub with a doe slung over his shoulder, blood still warm on its flank. The sight of the giant Apache, bow in hand, sent the posse recoiling, curses flying like spent cartridges. Crow wheeled his horse, vowing retribution. "You'll rue this," which a mingling blood like mud in the river. As their hoofbeats faded, Shaden dropped to one knee before Alara, his massive frame trembling not from fear, but fury held in check. "They will come again, with more," he warned, pulling her into his embrace, where she could feel the thunder of his heart. That night, as passion reclaimed them, fiercer than before, Alara whispered her fear, the child might never know peace in this divided land. Shaden silenced her with a kiss, deep and devouring, his hands roaming the landscape of her body, igniting fires that banished the cold dread. In the afterglow, he shared legends of his people, the giant who walked the stars, a hero who bridged worlds with his seed, ensuring harmony through progeny. Inspired, Alara dreamed of a future where their child could roam free, neither hunted nor hunter. But reality intruded with the dawn. A messenger from the Apache band arrived under flag of olive branch. A young brave named Kale with tattoos of lightning across his chest. He bore words from the council: Shaitan's banishment lifted, but only if he returned alone, forsaking the white woman's poison vine. The choice loomed like a storm cloud, tearing at the bonds they had forged in sweat and seed. Alara, sensing the pull, pleased Shaitan's hand on her belly, feeling the kick that bound them irrevocably. Stay, she pleaded, echoing his first words to her. Work for us, for this life we make. Shaitan's eyes, pools of midnight, reflected the turmoil, but in them, resolve hardened like flint. The narrative of their union deepened, layers of loyalty and lust weaving a shield against the world's blades, as the desert bloomed defiant under their care. Word count: 1,012. Approximate characters: 6,072. Autumn winds swept through the valleys like restless ghosts, stripping leaves from the cottonwoods and painting the landscape in hues of rust and gold. As Alara's pregnancy advanced, her form rounding with the miracle that both terrified and thrilled her. The homestead, under Shaitan's tireless guardianship, flourished. He had rigged a windmill from scavenged parts, its blades creaking to draw water from the aquifer below, filling troughs that once ran dry and greening the pastures where goats now grazed. Fat and content. Mornings began with shared labor. Alara grinding corn for tortillas, her movements slower but no less determined, while Shaitan sharpened tools by the forge he built from river stones, sparks flying like fireflies in the cool air. Their conversations meandered like the creek in flood, from Apache star lore to Alara's tales of New England winters, where snow blanketed the world in silence. Yet intimacy remained. Their anchor evenings found them in the barn's hayloft, where the scent of alfalfa mingled with their sighs, Shaitan's calloused palms cupping her swelling breasts, his lips charting paths of reverence down her body, awakening sensations that made her arch and gasp under his touch. You carry my strength, he breathed against her skin.